Hey, it's Jeffrey Graham here to give you kind of what's going on in the world relative to real estate, but mainly in the United States, but also how it compares to what's going on in our market. We talk about it on a regular basis. What is happening? What is the real estate questions? And most people ask similar questions when it comes to real estate, and so I'm going to try to get into some of that this afternoon, just to kind of update you on what's happening in the real estate across the United States. My name is Jeffrey Graham. I'm here at Graham Realty. We've got an incredible team here. Last year we did around 202 units. We were able to help families here in our community find their forever home, investment property, commercial property. And so if you're interested in real estate, please feel free to reach out to us at 803-432-7370. And we would love to help you in your real estate needs. So I'm going to get started and just talk about home sales, right? And so we're going to talk about home sales, home price, market volume, what has transpired across the nation, inventory relative to the history. We're going to talk about mortgage rates, which everyone wants to talk about, and how high they are. And then what does that do about affordability? So today we're going to take some time and go over each of these as it looks across the United States. So home sales, since 1990, that's kind of when most folks started tracking what's going on in real estate. What is happening? Can we see an increase or a decrease in home sales? And so one of the unique things that you can see in our graph here, so in 1990, you can see there was a climb of sales, and this is in millions. So 7.1 is the highest in sales as far as home sales in the United States. And so we know what happened in 06 and 08. There was a huge downturn, right? And so a lot of that was caused by the mortgages as well as real estate. And so there was a huge decrease in the number of sales. So since that time, you can see a slowly rise until COVID. And that 6.1 is at the end of that COVID time, and you can see that we're recovering now. But historically, we're on a rise, and so that's important to look at home sales. Home sales don't necessarily mean prices, but home sales, those are in the numbers. Sales by month, again, so if we look at 2024 versus 2023, January, pretty much the same last year. February, so these numbers are pretty consistent with what we saw just a minute ago with 41. So pretty consistent across last year as far as number of home sales. Home sales per month. In this instance, this is unusual in real estate for being this consistent, but these 2 years showed a consistency when it comes to home sales monthly. Home prices. Now, this is what we all care about, right? What's the price? What's the value of my home? Except for if you want to be the buyer. And so we got to make sure that we have that conversation in this as well. So when we start looking at what's happened to home prices, they have been this long-term trend. It's a 4% return. So people say, hey, what can I tell what my home will be worth in 15, 20 years, 5 years? And typically, there is a long-term trend that says about 4% is that gain. That's this lighter blue line, green line, showing you kind of what the consistency of home sales have been over the years. 06, same date as earlier, right? We saw a huge value change. Prices went up. Well, after that crisis, we saw a decline in prices. Then we can see what happened, right, in 2020. Best year in real estate, COVID, consistency. But look, values are way up. The price of a home is more expensive today than it was, obviously, since 1990, but also even in 2021, 22, and even in this 06, 07. And I think that's something to think about. Now, watch this. Look at home prices, again, when it talks to the time frame. The annual appreciation. So talking about that average of the 4%, well, look, the years that it was high and the years that it was low. I think that's important to look at. You look at here in this 10-year span, it was about a 4%, 3.9, right? Well, 01, 05, there was almost 9%. What a great time if you bought here and watched your value of your home increase. Amazing. Okay, 06, 011, bad time, right? We had a mortgage crisis. We had a lot of foreclosures. Our nation was hurt drastically by this. Well, you can see what happened and what happened to the price of those homes in that span. Well, then what happened after that? The value of homes started to climb back up, and so you can see what's going on here in those numbers. Again, the value of a home price, look at the home prices here, right? And so I think that's as you see, that trend line, as we talked about earlier, that's the 4% if you take those and break it up into pieces. That's the price you're seeing there. So then the other part that you want to think about when we talk about inflation. So everybody's talking about inflation and what's the cost of the eggs and how much is gas and how much is our electric bills, right? All those things are real. When we look at inflation over the time of the recessions, oil crisis, these are things that inflate or lower values of homes. And so think about when we were looking at that graph a minute ago, the savings and loan crisis, which we talked about. There was a 2.15 value decrease. The housing bubble, right? So after we went from this negativity and negative buying time, values went up, and guess what? There was a big housing bubble. Well, then after the recession of 09, you can see what happened. It went back down. So therefore, what was it going to do? It's going to go back up. And so we have to keep that in mind when we start looking at influences of value, and these affect those values. This is total market volume. So this is the volume of real estate that has transpired in 2023. So this is again, back to 1999. This is how many agents were in the business. Agent count, 1.3. Agents lost, right? And so you start looking at the decline and interesting in how many agents get into the business and out of the business. Now, what does that mean for us as a consumer and selling your home? Well, think about this, right? Total market volume. This volume, look at the volume. That means the value of the homes have increased drastically. 1, 2, 3. The best 3 years as far as volume in real estate have been since 2001. So the value of homes since 2001, those values are up, which is very significant. And what drives that is inventory, right? So if you have inventory, typically if you have a lot of inventory, that can decrease the values. In this instance, we have seen a decrease in volume, with inventory, 83, right? 1983, this is how many we were producing. When's the last time that's happened in the most recent years? Well, not till 08. 1983 is when we had this big build. Well, guess what we've done ever since then? Our inventory has gone down. We are not producing as much product across the nation for housing, which is part of the reason that we saw earlier that the values are up significantly. So when we think about that inventory is one of those things that affects the value. So 10.4, 10.5, 83, very similar as far as how much we were producing, and we're at 3.7 or 3.1 last year. The other component that affects our business and your sales and your buying and selling is mortgage rates. Now, everybody likes to talk about mortgage rates. Well, here's some facts. Mortgage rates, on average, are 7.72, right? That's the average of the real estate mortgage business over the span since 1972. Historical average is 7.72. Now, most of us have never seen this 16.63 percentage rate, but a lot of consumers in the 80s, our parents, maybe our grandparents, they saw these rates, and look how much, when we look at that in a minute, we'll talk about how much real estate actually transpired in that time, and we know a little bit about that from the history. What happened in those same years? Well, volume and prices and houses were a lot more were selling. And so it's important to think about that as you move forward. So today, our average is around 6.5 or 6.5. And so again, we're still below the national average when it comes to our mortgages. Something to consider if you're thinking about getting into the market. And again, this kind of on a monthly basis, you can see how mortgages do change since 2015. We saw what happened here. And then obviously during COVID, those were probably artificial numbers. Definitely people have great mortgage rates, but that's not normal. And we can see that in the history of mortgages. This was about half of the average. And so what did that do? Eventually it drove prices up. It drove the demand up as well. And thinking about mortgage rate and how it's broken down, I think it's important to, over the life of the mortgage, what percentage were in these rates. So when was it above 6%? About 16% over that same time frame. 10% or 5 to 6 was around 10. 4 to 5 is around 18%. 3 to 4, that was 34%. And then the 3% or less, 22%. So that time frame, a lot of people got mortgages, and that would be the same time frame as we were talking about earlier here when we got to here. So September, January, and March in that at 2021. And what does this do? It affects affordability. Those three things factor in affordability. If we're not building enough, mortgage rates are high, it affects affordability. So one of the struggles we have in the United States right now is inventory that's affordable, as well as inventory that is for a higher market. So we know that one of the problems that we have is affordability. So if it's up, the historical average, you can see it's consistent here. So we're above that by 32%. That's a significant amount, which is why some affordability right now is not an option in some markets. So for us, if you're interested in what's going on in our market, what's going on in Camden and Kershaw County and Sumter and Richland County, here in the Midlands of South Carolina, please reach out to our office. I'm going to put a QR code up right now, and it's if you're interested in finding more about your home and your value and what you're looking for in your next real estate move, please reach out to our office. We would love to help you. Feel free to email us at admin@grahamrealtyinc.com or give us a call at 803-432-7370. And again, it's Jeffrey Graham. Thank you for taking time to see what was going on across our nation as far as real estate.